In PHP, there are two types of numbers, integers and floats. In fact, you use them every day. For instance, when I order 3 burgers or 1 cup of coffee, 3 and 1 are integers, whole numbers without a decimal point. But when I have half of a pizza or 0.5, that's a float, a number with a decimal point. In this video, you'll learn how to use integers and floats and how to use them to create a link to a specific location anywhere in the world on Google Maps. We'll start with integers. They are whole numbers that represent complete things. For example, I have, fortunately, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers on my right hand, and these numbers are all integers. An integer doesn't have a decimal part, so it cannot be 1.1 or 2.53. It must be a whole number, like 1, 2, 3, and so on. What can we do with integers? Well, quite a lot actually. For example, we can add them by using the addition operator, or subtract, multiply, or divide, and more. I love burgers. Let's say my friend and I ordered a couple of burgers. So I'm gonna get rid of that and create a variable called our burgers. The first burger arrives, and I'll use the integer 1 to represent it numerically, and I'll assign it to our variable while we wait for the second burger. When the second one is here, I'll use the addition operator and the integer 1 again to add it to our burgers. Suddenly they've brought us a third burger. Why lose it? Let's keep it 2. That should be it. Here we used 3 numbers. Each one is an integer that represents a burger. Then we used 2 addition operators. So here we should have 3 burgers in total, but just to be sure, let's var dump our variable. Save the file, go to the browser, run the script, and there you go, the integer 3. If I wanted to subtract here, I would use a minus instead. To multiply, I would use an asterisk like this. And for division, it's gonna be a backslash. PHP has a few more arithmetic operators like modular or exponential, which I'll cover later when we need them for our project. Now it's time to eat our burgers. I want to be fair and split them evenly with my friend. That's easy. I'll write my half equals, then I'll take our burgers and just divide them by 2. 3 divided by 2 is 1 and a half burgers, or just 1.5. But integers are whole numbers. They cannot have that 0.5 part. This means that the value 1.5 is probably not an integer. It must be of some other data type. Let's var dump it to see what's in there. Save the file, run the script. This is a float, but you've probably already guessed that. Float is short for a floating point number. That is, a number that does have a decimal part. In our case, half a burger. And there will be times when you have a much longer decimal part. I mean this long. The decimal point can be anywhere within a float. That's why it's called a floating point number. Let me show you a cool example, which is gonna be a little more complex than just splitting a burger. We'll use floats to store the location coordinates of Central Park in New York. Then we'll use these coordinates to create a clickable link to Google Maps that will show Central Park. First, I'll make a variable for latitude. Latitude is like the y-axis, but for coordinates. For Central Park, the latitude is 40.7851. Next, I'll create longitude. Think of longitude as the x-axis in coordinates. For Central Park, the longitude is -73.9683. Floats can be negative. Let's use these variables to create the link to Google Maps. You already know that we can have PHP code and HTML in one script. Let's use this PHP feature to generate the link dynamically. Here I'm gonna put the closing PHP tag. Now I can start writing HTML. Since this is our sandbox project and we're not expecting any real visitors, we can save time by not creating a regular HTML 5-page structure. That is to say, we can skip writing doc type, HTML, head, and body, and just put our A tag right away. And modern browsers should still be able to understand us properly. Okay, it's gonna be less than A, then the href attribute. I'll leave it empty for now. As for the tag's content, I'm gonna be very creative and write Central Park, New York, and then the closing tag. Now, let's get back to the href attribute. This is where we need to put the actual link to Google Maps. I'll write the following: https://google.com/maps/place/. This part of the link is always gonna stay the same. That's why I put it in HTML. But then we need to provide the actual coordinates, which are dynamic, and we have them in these PHP variables. The first coordinate must be latitude, and it must go exactly right after this backslash. We've got latitude in this variable, and it would be perfect if we could ask PHP to output it right here. I know the echo command can display strings, but can it display floats? Well, let's experiment. If it doesn't work, we can always look for other solutions. Let's use the echo command here. So it's gonna be less than, question mark, equal, space, then our latitude variable that we want to print out, and the closing PHP tag. When this script runs, I expect to see here the actual latitude value instead. Next follows a comma. Then we need to put the longitude. I'm gonna try to echo the longitude the same way as the latitude. So short echo, longitude, and close the short echo. At this point, if everything goes well when I run the script, I expect to see a page with a link to Central Park. Save the file, return to the browser, and run the script. There you go, Central Park. This text looks like a link. This is a good sign. Let's try to open it. Google Maps. That's promising. Let me zoom out a little bit. Central Park and New York. This means our script works. I don't know about you, but I'm very proud of our script. Let's go over to VS Code. The great thing about storing coordinates this way is that if we change them here, the link will automatically point to a new location. This may seem overkill in this case, as we could remove all the PHP code and include the coordinates in the link, and have it like that. If you just need a static link on your website that always points to a single location, this might be a better approach. It's less code, and easier to read and maintain. But if these coordinates are dynamic, for example, our users enter their shipping address, and we store the coordinates in the database, that wouldn't work with a static link. And that is why we need this code. Quick side note, on Google Maps you can obtain coordinates by right-clicking on a location. The latitude and longitude should be displayed as the first menu item. In this video you learned how to use integers and floats, and you used them to create a link to Central Park on Google Maps. Congratulations! But wait a minute. If this script works, it means that something interesting has happened there. We have floats here and echo them there, but the echo command only accepts strings, not floats. So why then does the script work? It works because of automatic or implicit data type conversion, which means when we echo something other than a string, like a float in our case, PHP is smart enough to recognize that and convert that value to a string. So this script works because here PHP converts our float to a string. This process is called type juggling and is going to be the topic of our next video, which I highly recommend you to watch. Because type juggling can be very helpful or a source of frustration and bugs. So see you in the next video.